Okay, so this is kind of where we left things last time. You know, with just using the pictures, you can see there's no real shape in anything. It's all just very boxy. But from a distance, that's absolutely okay. Just adding a little bit of detail does help. Just that wee cornice on its own, and then much more detail. You know, the dentils and everything make it look much more believable. Okay, so I've applied that to the whole building now, and you know, it does look considerably better than the mapped version. But you know, if it's a long way away and you're not going to appreciate that detail, it's wasted effort. You know, looking around the site, you know, there's effectively, you know, 10 buildings that are pretty similar. You know, there's a kind of a collection of windows on these dormitory buildings. There's, you know, a few kind of door types, but you know, generally, you know, once you get the kind of set of variables, you could create models of those buildings pretty quickly just by kind of moving windows into positions and doors into positions, and it would actually come together quite quickly. So that's the finished model sitting on its own, and then kind of contextualizing that. So modeled landscape, modeled site walls, we've got some modeled trees in here, and there's what we call billboard trees as well. So this is kind of 3D Studio Max. Okay, and then looking from a bit further away, you do get, you know, a feeling that you do when you walk up here. You are walking upwards towards the gate. So, you know, I wanted to try and capture that with the model. I can hear something that sounds a bit like a lorry outside. You get that kind of as a lorry's trying to get uphill. We'll see. A lot of lorries use the road near me, so it could be any lorry, not necessarily mine. Okay, so I've wanted to finish the building so that I could definitely plot the position of the footprint of the building onto the site plan, site model. So that's what I'm going to do this time, is kind of talk you through generating this landscape. And you know, we did touch on this at the end of first year. You know, we looked at that kind of house T, and there was a little exercise that people could have done to kind of create the site immediate context of the building, but it wasn't really that tricky. It was you know, it was a pretty limited little site. So what I'll do is kind of take this from scratch. You know, how you actually establish the height of the ground in these places. So you do need to be quite methodical. Otherwise you could find that you're redoing stuff. You know, once you actually kind of look at it, when you get as far as visualization, it's a bit late. You know, you really need to make sure everything's good before you get to 3D Studio or Twinmotion or whatever you're using. Okay, so here's the kind of finished version of the bit of landscape. So I've XREF'd in the Autocad model of the building, so that's the kind of crosses here, that's the roof. Got a couple of big areas of ground that are all flat here. They're kind of sitting alongside the driveway that takes you in to where your buildings are going to be. Okay, and then you can see here there's a lot more detail in, you know, the immediate vicinity of the gatehouse, and further away it gets kind of weaker, and the surfaces get much bigger. They're covering bigger areas. You know, so that one surface there is the same size as the whole area here. Okay, well, this doesn't just come together by itself, you know, in any kind of miraculous form. There's no quick make me a landscape button or anything like that. It is, you know, pretty laborious, and you have to be pretty careful as well. Okay, you notice this is kind of greyed out because this is an XREF. This isn't actually in this drawing. You know, I can't do much with this file. As I click it, you see it says it's an external reference. Okay, if you look at the layers list, you eventually see these ones that are greyed out. These are part of the XREF. So it has the file name first, the GH, that's gatehouse, and then this vertical line symbol is called pipe, and that just separates the parts of the name for you. Okay, so it's useful, you know, to try and, if you're looking at a fairly big site like this where you've got multiple buildings and different features, to kind of have this kind of overall controlling model, that so that everything kind of stays in the right place and you don't get, you know, big errors of placement and things. Okay, I've just shade that, you can see what we've got. Okay, I haven't bothered to fill this in because from the viewpoint you don't see that bit of land anyway, but if you sometimes need land surface everywhere so that the light has something to hit. So if that was green, it would actually, the light hits it and it reflects green back up. So you can't just necessarily leave it completely empty. I just didn't bother finishing it off for today, to be honest. Okay, the wall is probably the trickiest bit of the model here. And you can see I've got this in two parts. I've got a coping and the actual wall shape as well. But that is a lofted object, picking up on lots of sections of the wall distributed along the edge of the grass area. But we'll get to that once we've gone through the initial basics. Okay, so here's where we kind of start things, and I've got two versions here. This is my kind of muckabout area to start off with. So what do you do first? It's kind of, it can be a bit daunting when you're kind of looking at a site model, but you've just got to really tear in and get moving. And the first thing I did here was tidy up the roads, because they're all kind of, you know, horribly angular, not parallel with each other. You know, they're not offsets, they're just a mess. Huge width as well. That's kind of crazy size across here. You know, 6 meters. It certainly isn't 6 meters when you're there. It's, you know, the width of one car, really. So, you know, much too big and much too messy. So that was my first thing, is to you know, draw cleanly some better looking roads. So using lines wherever possible, because that does make the modelling a bit easier if there's more lines. But where we've got, you know, two roads meeting here, this kind of Y junction, then I have used a radius on here so we get something that looks a bit more appealing. Okay, so I've done that for the three kind of corners of the triangle, and then set up a polyline down the middle of the driveway so that can be offset either side to get a nice parallel path right the way into the site. Okay, the yellow around here is the footprint of the actual model. So if you remember from last week, when we looked at the aerial picture, the position of the building was quite a way out from the aerial image. So if I just bring back on the building, and I need to, oh, the GH level layers are all there. Oh, it must be down here actually. Yeah. So what I've done is traced the footprint of the model. I've not got that duplicated on the upper model here, so I do have its footprint available though. So GH footprint. Okay, so you can see the two are a wee bit different. You know, the actual the archway is much thicker. It's much more squarer, a perfect square, and much tidier. So what I'll do is just get rid of the Ordnance Survey one because it's pretty bogus. Okay, the ground does come in through the archway. It kind of changes from grass to grit and eventually to tarmac. So there is a bit of a transition here from kind of soft to hard landscape. I've not kind of modelled that in detail because it could be done, no problem. Okay, but levels are the important thing to start off with. Okay, so we've got a 60 meter contour pretty close to our building. Okay, so what I'm assuming and kind of making it happen is that the level of the lodge or the gatehouse and the driveway are all the same at 60 meters. You know, because this 60 meter contour is going all over the place here. You know, so generally, you know, I think it's safe to assume that we're pretty much at 60 meters in this kind of area and beyond. So that's what I kind of start with, is setting up the kind of just the overall level situation. So what I did is plot a new contour, okay, that's starting off at 60, okay, and we're coming kind of in front of our building, so we're making it happen rather than it just being, you know, we don't know what level it is. It's just like we make it a certain level, and you know, in the absence of any other information, it's fine, it's right. And then we'll sweeten our way back in to the existing contour. Okay, so that's my kind of revised 60 meter contour, which is a bit more parallel with the 55, which is parallel to the 50. So it just kind of works. It's going to help us get things a bit more defined. So what I'm going to do is just put this circle onto the contour there. So that's one of my key positions. Okay, so what we're saying then is that the ground has to slope from this point down to here, because that's at 60 meters and that's at 55. Let's just put some of these levels on. Okay, so 60,000 here, 55,000 there. So what I start off with is just a line this time. So this was a polyline, so it maintains its level at 60,000, but this one is just a normal line going basically from contour to contour. Okay, if I list that, we should have two different Z levels. Starts at 60,000, finishes at 55,000. Okay, I generally work in millimeters, even though the numbers look pretty big. It's when you get down to this area where the level changes aren't that dramatic. You know, if you're working in points of meters, then it gets a bit confusing. So at least everything's a whole number if you work in millimeters. Okay, so that kind of gives us a level for the road as well then. So I'm going to use the nearest object snap so that I can pick any point on a line. Okay, I'm just going to put a little circle on here. Okay, so we've got a level there, you know, very approximately in the middle of the road. So we'll put that, and we can ask it what that level is. If I list the circle, okay, 58,689. So round that up a little bit. So we'll say 58,690. 58,690. Okay, so you know that's 1.3 meters, and it feels like that when you walk up that path. It does feel like you're going up. So you know that's half a story. 1.3, 1.4 meters is half a story. So there's definitely, you know, something happening levels wise. It's not dramatic, but there is. Okay, and then what you can do is join this center. I'm just going to make sure this circle's sitting on the contour. So let's just go the other way around. Actually, let's go from center to center. Okay, and then this line helps us establish where this junction is. You know, is it at the same level as this? Is it higher? Is it lower? Okay, so if we draw a polyline from here to roughly the middle of the junction, which is about here. That's going to give us a close enough level to work with. Okay, so I'll copy the circle over to here. Let's find out what that is. You can use the command ID, short for identify, and that's got my level there, 58866. So let's say 58870. Okay, so 58870. Okay, so seeing that we're getting kind of variation. So these lines don't need to be kept, they've done their jobs. But what we can do now is put in what I call a spine. So this is kind of going along the roads. So we've got a spine line there, and then another spine up the road this way. Okay, so once we establish the roads, establishing the pavements is dead easy. Oh, I can definitely hear a lorry somewhere nearby. They often, luckily they often go into my neighbour's driveway, the next road up, and then they have to tell them that I don't live there, I live somewhere else. Okay, now I've got a much bigger spine that we can put in here. We've got the contour crosses the highway at this point, so that's another spine that we can put in right the way back to there. Check this once in a while just to make sure everything's working, behaving. So just flip it over into 3D view, just make sure there's no lines, dramatically dropping down to the ground. It's very easy for that to happen when you're working from the top down in the 3D kind of mode. Okay, and then our last spine. So this is pretty close to where the junction is, so probably don't need to interrupt that too much, but we could just draw a line from about here. Let's take it to the middle of the junction. This is just a normal line, so it can be broken, and we can just reposition that if we need to. And then we can draw a line back up to there. So that gives us, a good levels kind of skeleton to work from. Let's just ask it what the level is here. 58245. So let's say 58240. Okay, these numbers are immaterial, to be honest, because we're using the lines. We're not really worried about the numbers. These lines effectively give us all the numbers we need. And then my last little spine line over to there. So that's my kind of 3D setup for the roads, and that makes it much easier to start fleshing out a model on top of this. Okay, so like I said, we don't really worry about the numbers, so I'm going to switch those off because they're of no real use. Now this line at the moment is down on the ground, so its level Z is 0. Okay, so I'm just going to draw a little bit of line out from there. Oh, that's annoying. These should all be on spines layer. Let me just, I'll put these onto spines. Probably okay if they stayed on 0, but I'm just going to draw a little bit of polyline out from there, just so we've got something to work with in this area. Okay, so from these spines, we then want some ribs. Okay, so I have a layer, use a layer for ribs. Okay, and what these need to do is come from the spine and try and pick up the change points in the road edges or the path edges. So there's quite a few little endpoints here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all pretty close here. So I'll need to have 5 ribs to pick up those positions. Some of them are going to be at 60 meter level, but others are going to start dropping as we go further away. Okay, so what we do is guesstimate the perpendicular position from the end point. So it's using a polyline. Okay, I can pick up maybe there and go to there. Okay, the next end point, well, there's one here, so let's go from about here. I'm trying to find the end point. There it is. Another one not far away, just there, and then we don't get another one for quite a distance. The next one's right down here. So you don't need to keep putting hundreds of spines in, because effectively that's changing level at this point, and it's going to a different level here. So everything in between is pretty straight. So you're just looking for the change points. So a change point there, but there's also one on the other side. So the polyline has to go from spine back the way. Okay, here there's an end point just about there. Okay, they're not necessarily in the same positions on either side of the road. Okay, so I don't have one here, but I do have one there. Okay, over here I can definitely see an end point just there. And you try to be as perpendicular as you can. That's not brilliant, that one, but it's close enough. We're only talking a millimeter or two of difference. Okay, there's an end point just here. Okay, and obviously a pretty clear one there, but we're at the 60 now. Okay, we're at 60 here, but we're not at 60 there. We're slightly lower. Okay, 60, 60, oh no, 60 here, but slightly lower there because it's come from this position. Okay, so if we were drawing a region, if we wanted to try and speed things up for surfacing, the safe region up here is beyond this line. So let me just show you what I mean. Little end point there. Okay, so that area is all at 60 meters, but beyond this we're starting to change level, so we'd have to revert to 3D faces. So we're okay for a region here, but beyond that levels are changing all over the place. We have to use 3D faces. Okay, a region is just a flat solid. If I type reg and pick that, if you don't get this message, one loop extracted, one region created, it means that this isn't perfectly flat. Okay, it's got to be planar for it to be able to create the surface. So that region's fine. Okay, but beyond that we have to revert to triangulation. Okay, now I'm going to jump from this model to one that needs finished. Okay, so rather than work on this bit in isolation, I've got a bit that needs finished, but all done in the same method. Okay, so we'll leave that alone and we'll come down to here where there's a bit that needs attention. Okay, so it's a better kind of example to show it, you know, doing a bit that's already started. So we're looking at the spines first again. So let's look at this bit first, the end of the road, because this is quite, you know, probably the trickier bit. So we need a spine from this side and a spine from this side. So as you go around the bend, you might be dropping in level. I don't know if you know at the top of Rose Angle, you know, you go from the Perth Road, say this is the Perth Road, and you kind of go round very tightly around the metal railings at the church, and the pavement drops really quickly, and then you head down Rose angle. So try and kind of picture that kind of shape in your head. That's kind of what you, how would you model that? It's a difficult shape, you know, difficult to model, let alone difficult to cut paving slabs and things to it. It's all very smooth and not dangerous. Okay, so we need a polylines again. So we'll pick up the end of the curve there. Okay, pick up the end of the curve here, around about there, and then a normal line from the end of the green line. So this is where your tab key can be very helpful. So I'm looking for the end of the green line, not the end of the yellow line. So place your cursor on the green line, and I'll do that again. Place your cursor on the green line, tap tab until it shows endpoint, but it's the green line that's lit up. So that's definitely picking the end of the green line. Similarly over here, I tap tab a couple of times and it's giving me the endpoint. Okay, just check that. That's what we should see. End of green to end of green. Okay, then to get round the bend, we need lots of ribs. So what I do is just half it, and then half it again, half it in this direction, and then just half it again. So it doesn't have to be, you know, super accurate. You don't necessarily have to divide the curve and find the nodes and things. You can if you want, but this is just as good. You know, roughly, you know, eighths around the bend there. Okay, over this side we've got road here, and then we've got a verge. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take the polyline to the road edge first, and then out to where the hedge is. Okay, on this side we've got road edge, and then we've got a wall. So one of these lines is the wall, this one. Okay, that's a very bad road line, that one. Okay, so I'm going to go from spine to road edge, and I don't know where the wall is properly. Now I do have a line drawn for this, so I'm just going to show you this. Okay, so what I did in 2D is also create a nicer shape for the stone wall. Okay, so what we can use then, we can trim off the rib with the wall. Okay, I'll maybe introduce another one here. So we've got a bit of a bend in the road here, so I'll go from spine to wall, and then from spine to road to wall. Okay, so we're picking up the changes of direction in the wall. There's a bit more curvature here. I'll probably just leave it. The lofting will probably deal with that okay. But here the bend is getting a bit tighter. Same on the road. We have to introduce a few more spines. So, sorry, a few more ribs. Okay, so I'll go there and out to the wall. So I'm trying to join the wall perpendicular if I can. Maybe go from here. And then we start to get, it starts to stretch out again. We start to get longer, straighter portions. So I could probably go just to the middle of this. So I have one here and one there. Okay, and then you've got to kind of repeat that on the other side. Probably don't need as many. Okay, so I don't need all of these, but I think I'll pick up on this one. You know, this is the third time I'm doing this. I did it to show you the finished one. I did it with the previous group, and I've done it again just now. And it's going to be different every time I do it. It'll pick up slightly different positions. It doesn't matter. Okay, I think another point here would be helpful, just for help the triangulation. Okay, that's not far off the ribs done. Looks like we're missing one here. I think I need to put one in there and just trim that off. Now that one's gone from the ground. Notice it's way down here. So I'm going to erase that. We need to put that one in again because we weren't picking up on the green line. So I fell into my own trap there. So it's a polyline, hover, tab a couple of times, and then bring it out. So that I'm going from my higher up line, that's better. Okay, that's looking okay. We've got ribs all the way along there. You're on the wrong layer. Let's just put those onto the ribs layer. Right, now you see these are separated by a little gap, and this line appears to be higher than the other one. So this is to represent the verge, where we've got kind of a banking and a little slope coming back down to the roadway. Now, roads are actually quite cleverly designed generally. Got a little slide here. It's just kind of talking about roads. You know, in real detail, a road is actually curved, and that's called the camber. And so so your white line is in the middle, and it drains to the gutter, drains to the edge of the road, and that tries, you know, make the road safer. And in towns, you'll find there is a proper gutter. You know, quite often it's either a tarmac strip or a concrete strip, and there's drains in there, and there's all sorts of pipes underneath the road to pick up the rainwater and get it away quickly. In the countryside, it's a bit different. You might have a drain if there's a especially bad bit where it collects a lot of rainwater. Otherwise, it can just be a strip of gravel, or you know, just a little kind of ditch, effectively. Where there's a steeper hill, you know, ditches are really needed, because you don't want that water and the mud to just kind of end up on the road, which can easily happen. Okay, in towns as well, you'll find curbs, you'll find proper footpaths, and a curb at the other side of the footpath as well, that kind of usually denotes the boundary. So this is usually where people's gardens start. And roads in Scotland anyway, they call it road metal, and this is just, you know, good quality crushed stone. You know, a good thick layer of that first, and then they have a fairly thick kind of base course for the road of tarmac, which is kind of pretty rough tarmac, and then thinner high quality tarmac on top for the wearing course. You know, and that can, you know, dramatically affect the, you know, the quality of the road and the noise of the road and everything. You know, how much damage it causes to tires. You know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, how much rubber and stuff ends up in the atmosphere just because the roads are too rough, and the tires are getting ground into a very fine dust that ends up getting breathed in. So it's all pretty toxic. It's you know, it staggers. I find it staggering to think how much oil has been used on roads. It's just phenomenal area of the planet is underneath tarmac, especially when you see roads in America. You know, we have 2 lanes usually, one going either way. In America, you know, just a standard road is about 3 times the width of ours. So it's just unbelievable how much tarmac there is out there, and all of that is stones in gooey oil. It's crazy. It's no wonder we're in the situation we're in. Okay, but this is, you know, generally how roads operate. We don't try and build roads on slopes in that kind of direction with the slope, because, you know, vehicles will just fall off. You know, generally, you know, if you've got a pretty steep slope, it's either cut in completely, or half in and half out, or it's filled in this kind of sense, you know, and quite often there might even be a wall as well, trying to keep the road in place. A few roads, you know, over on the west coast have disastrously, you know, they every year the the roads are getting kind of washed away by just not huge landslips, but they're in really bad situation over there. Huge delays. Okay, so come back to here. So what we want to do is just introduce this little slope into here, and quite easy to do because you can use 2D polylines to trim these lines, because these are all just effectively horizontal polylines. They just happen to be up in the air. So if we look back at this from the top, okay, and let's take this yellow one to start off with. So that's down at level 0, but if we offset it by, I'm using 400 millimeters here, okay, and then I can trim using both the yellow lines. I can trim away bits of the ribs. So this should be a bit easier now. When you get to the end, sometimes you have to extend the yellow line there, the trimming object, because it doesn't quite touch the last of the ribs, because these are drawn generally kind of freehand, so they're not perfectly perpendicular or anything. So that's that side done, so that can be switched off. So you see we've got this little gap now. Okay, and then we'll do the same on the other side. Okay, I'm just going to go into 3D on this one and just draw a polyline, okay, from here to the ends of these. Okay, notice how the polyline's getting a little bit higher each time. Okay, offset that by the 400. Okay, and then this is able to trim away a bit of the rib. Okay, keep going. Just that's it. No more to do. So they can go in the bin. So all I need to do now is lift these up by the same height that these ones have been lifted up, which is 200 millimeters. So I just check that. If I do a distance from here to here, delta Z 200. So that's the height for my little slope at the side of the road. So I'm going to move all of these. Okay, the brown ones have already been moved, so is that one. So let's just, still need to trim these ones. Okay, let's just do these ones first. Ortho on, set your direction, it's positive Z, 200. Okay, so you can see there's a little banking, slope, road, slope, banking. Okay, I need to do that polyline again here, just so we can trim it off. Bit more shape of road there, that's for sure. 400. Usually have to extend that one. Bit of trimming. Looking for the little gap. Need to extend this one again. Should be a trimmable bit. There it is. That's it. Okay, move those up as well. Ortho on, 200, and that's it. That's all the ribs in place. So now it's just a case of surfacing. So that's quite a mundane job, doing the ribs. The surfacing's even more mundane, but it's dead easy. So let's start with the road surface. Make that our current layer. Okay, so a lot of it's already done. Okay, switch ortho off. You don't need many O-snaps here because we're basically just drawing to endpoints, so just endpoint will do. So that's my second point, third point, fourth point. Okay, do the same down here, That's my second point, that's my third, fourth. Okay, now you can, if you did these all of them anti-clockwise, then that surface faces upwards, and that can make things a bit easier when you take a model into other software, but it doesn't have to be done that way. Okay, so round here things are a bit trickier. We're not going to get away with four-sided shapes all the time, so I'm just going to drop in a pretty big triangle to start off with there. Let's just fill this middle bit, and then we'll come out to the edge of the road. So sometimes three-sided, sometimes four-sided. You can pick and choose. There's no kind of rules. And like I said, every time I do this, I'll do it a different way. But having the fewer object snaps certainly helps. It goes definitely straight for the end point. Okay, I'd love to use a region here and just do things, dead easily in seconds, but you can't, because it won't work. You've got to kind of go with it. The levels are changing all around here, so even trying out different surface commands, sometimes it takes more time to set up than the time saved. So I just don't worry about it. Okay, put a bigger one in there, and then we'll go back to the big ones again. So that's the road surface done. So we just check it. Always, do the odd shade and check just to make sure everything's okay. Okay, it looks pretty good. It's still faceted, but it's a lot better than the Ordnance Survey one. Okay, what I'll do is now go on to the grass surface, and we'll speed things up a bit. So surf verge. Okay. Right, this bit's got to be done fairly carefully. Okay. So that's the big easy bits. Then this end bit, what I tend to do is change direction slightly. So I've done a shape like that instead. It just seems to deal with this, the way you kind of go around bends, a bit easier than kind of fanning out like these are doing. Okay, the ribs and things aren't going to go anywhere, they just get dumped along the way as you go through to 3D Studio. Right, let's speed things up going around here. So if I start at the bottom here, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. So remember what you did in the wee... Oh, no, speaking about first years. We did a little warm-up 3D exercise, and I was teaching them about this. Okay, problem is every second face is facing downwards. So you've got half of them facing up and half of them facing down. Autocad doesn't care, but other software does. Okay, so we'll do the same method here just because it's a bit quicker. Okay, so you might find that you bring a model in to SketchUp, or sorry, yeah, or even to SketchUp, and you find that you've got white surfaces and blue surfaces. It's some of them are facing up and some of them are facing down. But it is a fair bit quicker. Okay, got to be a bit more careful here. Make sure I pick the right point. and the limited number of O-snaps, it really does make things a lot quicker. Because it's, you know, there's only one endpoint in that position, so you can be pretty safe about it. Okay, let's have a quick look at that. Okay, so we've got our little, so there's a bit of a dip there. Look, there's one of these lines didn't end up going up by 200, so you can see there's a problem there. So all you need, because these are 3D faces, they're very easy to stretch. So what I'll do is just change back to 2D wireframe, and I need to stretch this junction and this junction at the same time. So if I grab them both with a crossing window, enter, put ortho on, base point can be anywhere, and you can see we're able to lift that up, and we need to go up by the 200, and that's it, tidied up. Much easier to do. So a little bit of, while we're with the grass material here, let's just switch off these spines for a second, they're a wee bit distracting. Turn that blue line off as well, that's in my way. So you can see here the 200 high bit is coming around here, but we want it to kind of fade off and become level. And I've done that on this side. Okay, so we're 200 here, but then it goes, you can see there's the orange line is 50 above there, 100 above there, 150 above there, and then we're down at the same level as the paving. So we'll do that on this side. So we're using stretch command and the crossing window, green window, enter, base point can be anywhere. We're taking this one down just by 50. Take this one down by 100. Take this one down by 150. Okay, and then if we triangulate here, we're going from 150 to 0 to 0. Okay, we can bring the corner of this one down to the corner of the building, just so we've got kind of grass running along the edge there. Here's my lorry, guys. Can we have a break for just 10 minutes? Got a little bit more stuff to show you, so I will just nip out, make sure this guy drops the stuff, and then I'll be back in by past. Okay. Right, guys, I will just stop the sharing for a second whilst I'll pull where we left off. I'll just resume the video. Okay, so we kind of looked at that bit. So there's a couple of bits still to finish off here. What I haven't shown you is the wall setup. So this is probably the trickiest of the lot. Okay. Now I'll bring on the wall that's already there. There's one wall done already. Okay, I'm just going to tweak these colours a wee bit and make them a bit brighter so we can see one for the actual wall that's a bit brighter. And the coping, let's make that kind of let's go for a strong green so we can see it. Oh yeah, that's okay. Alright. So here's one of the walls that was just done as a single profile. You can see the kind of shape, and that's kind of running down and round. So what I'll do is I'll set up the guideline first for the wall. And so this is a bit of a different object, one we've probably not encountered before. That's a 3D polyline. So I'm going to use this area, this layer, wall set out. So a 3D poly. Okay, and I'm just going to pick up the ends of all of these bits of the ground. Okay, there's not a heck of a lot you can do with a 3D polyline. They don't offset, but they're really useful for kind of creating like handrails and things like that, and good for this situation as well, where you've got a wall that's dropping in level but also bending at the same time. Okay, what I do at this end is just make it a bit longer, and that gives you a bit of slack that you could. So if you need to trim off the end of the wall, you can. It's easier to trim it off than it is to add afterwards. So kind of do the same here, just add a little bit more to the wall, just so you've got something you can trim off. Okay, so that's the line that the profile is going to follow, and I just want to show you what happens when you use the sweep command instead of lofting, which is what we're going to use. Okay, so I've got a couple of profiles here, and this is a 3D polyline, okay, and this is a 2D polyline. Okay, let's sweep this onto this shape onto each one. So we pick the object, select the base point, we'll use the intersection here. Okay, select the path. Okay, do the same for this one, sweep it, select the base point, intersection, and then select the path. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll look down on top of this very closely, and you'll see that the sweep that's on the curvy line, if I can remember where it is. Where is it? I lost. Oh, there we are. Okay, so this is on the 2D polyline. Okay, you notice everything's even, the same distance, everything's even. The end of the line is absolutely kind of vertical and flat. Okay, if you look at the end of the sweep on the 3D polyline, it's not looking so good. Okay, they've got different gaps. We've got different gaps showing up everywhere. So that means that this wall is tilting as well. It's kind of leaning outwards or inwards. It's hard to tell which direction. So things aren't great. It's not a huge amount of tilt because the landscape here is quite gentle. It's not very slopey. But you know, if you've got a more pronounced kind of profile of the ground, then the tilt can be pretty disastrous. Okay, you can see the end of the wall. You know, we can kind of make out the end shape slightly. It shouldn't be visible. Okay, so what I'll do is instead of sweeping, which is okay, what I'm going to do is loft instead. Okay, so let's have a look at the shape, and I broke it into two shapes. So the main wall and the coping as well, because it's kind of, the coping is covered in kind of moss here. It's been there for so long and it's just grown over. Okay, the yellow stuff is identifying kind of heights. So the intersection here is really where I want it to meet the ground, and then there's some extra below just to make sure it does go into the ground, and so it allows for a bit of tolerance of the landscape on either side. It don't have to be super accurate. Okay, now this has been on purposely rotated into the orientation that you can see at the moment, so that the profile is effectively kind of perpendicular to the X direction. Okay, so effectively it's kind of drawn in the YZ plane. It's in this plane instead of the usual XY plane. Okay, and that is a bit of trial and error with this sometimes to get it facing the right way so it behaves on the next command, because it can end up being the wrong way round quite easily. But it's just a case of, you know, rotating through 90 degrees to find the one that works. But if you kind of envisage it needing to be drawn in the YZ plane, then you shouldn't go too wrong. Okay, so what we need to do is make this into a block. So the command is B. Okay, I've already used it, so I'm just going to rename it to the same here. WP just stands for wall profile. Okay, you pick a control point, which is going to be this intersection. So this is the point that's going to run down the 3D polyline. Okay, select objects. We don't need the yellow lines, we just need the two shapes. And notice it's showing up as just a single line there. that's good. It's kind of facing onto us instead of we're not looking directly at the profile. Okay, redefine that. Okay, then we want to make this follow this shape. So what we're going to do is, we've got two choices here. We've got the divide command or the measure command, and both give you what looks to be the same result, but with divide you have to make a guess as to how many you would need, and that's really difficult to do. You know, I don't know, 20 or 30. I'm just guessing. But if you use the measure command, you can say, well, give me one of those shapes every 5 meters or every 3 meters or whatever, and that's a bit more controllable. So I would vote for measure as the better option. So the command is measure. We want to measure this. We want to use a block. So you click the block option. The block to use is WP, the one we just created. It says, do you want to align the block with the object being the 3D polyline? Yes, we do. So just press enter for that, and then it says what gap between each profile do you want. So let's say 3000. Okay, so if you're making fences or anything like that, you know, this is the ideal kind of command. Okay, what happens is that it doesn't put one right at the start, so we have to basically copy this one from its insertion point to the end of the 3D polyline. I'm not sure what the logic is with that. It doesn't give you the first one, but gives you all the others. Right, we can't loft between these at the moment because they're blocks. Okay, so this block has got 2 polylines inside it, so we need to explode all of them. So to do that quickly, use SSX, enter, pick one of these, enter. So it's looked through the drawing and it's found 57 of these profiles. Okay, then you call up your explode command, so it's X, return, and then P, and that brings back what SSX found. So it's P, enter, enter again. That's them all exploded. So we're now back to coping stone and wall shape. Okay, with most of this stuff it's all a bit laborious, so lofting is nothing different. You can't actually just pick all of them and think it'll loft. You have to pick them in sequence. So it's loft, and then we go from one to the next to the next. Okay, I'm on the wrong layer at the moment, but I'm not going to start again. Okay, so where you're going around a bend quite tightly, you're best to pick every one. Okay, but once we get around the bend and we're onto the straight part of the road, we can start missing out some of these. So we can skip quite a few and get along the profile a bit quicker. There we go. Remember to enter twice at the end or you'll have to start that again. Okay, let's just match layers. Okay, let's make current layer be the coping now, and you just do the same for the coping. So it's loft again. Okay, and you know, this gives you a much truer vertical wall that's not leaning in and out. You know, with the thickness of the wall gives you enough tolerance for, you know, the landscape hitting it on either side. You know, don't try something, you know, too thin, or you might end up with a few gaps here and there. Okay, so now I can see which ones we picked before because they've not got a bottom bit. So we can just pick the same ones, and that way at least it's kind of constant shape-wise. So measure and divide, really useful command. Oh, I forgot to copy one to the end. So I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. Okay, and then you just delete the ones that you didn't use. Once they're exploded, you can't SSX them. SSX will only pick the ones that are in exactly the same orientation. So if I SSX this one, I'll only get 4 of them, or 6. So there's only 6 that are kind of identical to that. So pre-exploding, they were easily selectable, but after that, it's not so easy. Okay, let's just shade that. Okay, and you can see the wall, you know, it does look pretty good even on this model. It's got that, it just looks right, you know, the way it's kind of, the shape is behaving. It's not, it's always looking vertical. Much better. Okay, and the final kind of bit on here is just to fill in the bigger bits of landscape, so nothing too scary. So I've got fields here, so you know, don't necessarily try and pick up on every single point on a contour. There's no need to do that. If you take these contours are a bit better than they used to be. They used to have thousands of small segments in them, so they have kind of made them, I think. But even with these, if you took these into 3D Studio and asked it to generate a surface for you, it'd probably be too many triangles. And you know, is that really important? How that kind of ripple in it works? You know, you would just go straight across there. So quite often I just retrace the contours and simplify them a heck of a lot. So here, you're just triangulating again. So you know, unless there's something really dramatic happening in the ground, in the surface, then it should look as if it kind of joins in quite tidily. Okay, so we're a bit more, we're generally horizontal across the road, just like that sketch kind of had before. So we're horizontal, and then we start dropping down into the fields again. You know, if I was doing this, you know, for a personal project or whatever, I would have probably given this a bit more shape and had a bit of a lump here and a bit of a ditch and then the hedge and then it slopes away. You know, but you know, we're not modelling the gatehouse here. We're a long way from it, so you know, I wouldn't spend too much time. Etc. Okay, and you do the same on the inside and what have you. So, you know, if you took the wall away, you'd be able to see the edge of the landscape, and we could join in on this side to that. You know, but only model what needs to be modelled. If that bit of land isn't going to be seen, then no need to model it. Just leave it out. You get the idea? A bit tighter in there. Okay. So the as I said, this is a region. So regions are very useful. You can draw, you know, awkward shapes with a region, curves, what have you. Okay, so nasty shape, but that's because that was drawn with a polyline. It's planar, so every point on that shape is at the same level, and that means it will region fine. So the command is reg, R-E-G, enter. Just pick the shape and enter. So use regions where you can. So this, like this road here, is a region, but where you've got levels that are going all over the place, 3D faces are going to be a better option. You know, I would love to just extrude a shape around and things, but it just doesn't work. There'd be so much setting up and tweaking that you may as well have just done the 3D facing.